And we are back.
Yes.
We've got another giveaway this week.
Indeed.
A lot of giveaway action. We got another feature giveaway this week, and TV, and a lot of fun stuff. So, what are you looking forward to for the summer, Tim? Any movies anything coming down the pike other than Avengers? Everybody wants to see Avengers.
I was the Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, though, isn't it? It's sort of like sucking all the air out of the room.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I'm kind of looking forward to the return of Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
After they ran that teaser during the Oscars, and then I went and saw the thing online. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I mean, because I had one of the more challenging courses that I had at UCLA was children's literature. Which actually was a really interesting class. It's one of those classes that all the jocks take because they think it's going to be easy. They're like, kids literature, awesome. I'll just read pop-up books and Dr. Seuss and I'll totally get an A. Which is not what it is.
No.
It's Bridge to Terabithia and Mary Poppins and it was actually very challenging. You still had to write essays.
Oh, lots of Jungian analysis.
Oh yeah,
going on when you're studying that stuff. Yeah.
But we read all the Mary Poppins books, which are nothing like Mary Poppins the movie, by the way, as people learned from, I hope, from Saving Mr. Banks.
Mr. Banks, yeah.
But yeah, they apparently took several, if not all, of the remaining books. If memory serves, there's like 5 more of them. And kind of mashed them all together, and the second one, the actual Mary Poppins Comes Back, I think is the second one. Takes place like 6 months later or whatever. It doesn't. It's pretty instant. Whereas in the movie, the kids are grown up in this new movie, so they're borrowing, but they're making it their own too. And it looks like it should be a lot of fun.
It's interesting as I think about it, to actually answer your question. And it's not that I'm looking forward to these movies, these remakes that are coming out probably actually later in the year or next year. But you and I talked about this earlier. They're remaking Shaft again, and Superfly. Black exploitation films from my youth, and these are terrible ideas. This is just a really bad. There are all kinds of reasons not to do either one of those things. But there they are. They're gonna happen. So I must go see how I guess it would be the millennial generation. I guess it would be them. Will be interpreting my baby boom fare, which lives very much at the time that it was made. It's the reason why Superfly works and Shaft works at that particular time. But anyway, whatever.
And Deadpool 2, of course, I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that Josh Brolin is the go-to villain in 2 Marvel movies that open within a month of each other.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
How did that? That's it. First of all, good agenting. His agents are fabulous. I think it has something to do with that square head of his.
He's going to be mostly CGI'd in the Avengers, basically. But in Deadpool, he's there. What is he? Chain? Is that the name of the guy?
Yeah. So it's good for him. What are you going to do?
It's great. Good for him. Absolutely. So yeah, that'll be fun. And then
still coughing. It's still a little bit. Yeah,
it's gonna be with me for probably another week or two. Off and on. The more you talk, the more it irritates you. And then we also get Ant-Man and the Wasp in July.
In the Wasp, whatever.
All the Marvel stuff.
But Ant-Man, first of all, that was a surprise hit and a surprisingly good movie. Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
The original movie when he shows up. We'll have to see. Whether or not the thing. So look, a diminishing amount of return for me is on all these movies. That's not like I'm looking forward to any of them. Mostly, they will be things I will need to evaluate.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's again, the fall is where I think I see a lot of interesting things coming down the pike, and there'll be some interesting foreign films. Solo, does that look any good? The Star Wars Han Solo thing? Is that looking even? I mean, knowing what we know of the troubled production, no, it doesn't.
I'm such a downer because I know they're the fan, fan kids out there. But look, I have to look at these things sort of rationally. And evaluate them. And I'm sorry, no.
Incredibles 2,
Yeah, yeah,
I think I may
yeah,
have fun with.
yeah.
The only other one I can think that I'm a little bit curious about is I mean it's all summer stuff. It's all sequels. The Mamma Mia sequel.
Yeah.
Look, the first one. I don't know if I ever talked about this on the show. Uh, I love ABBA. I do.
Yeah.
I love ABBA music when it's sung by ABBA, not by Meryl
Meryl.
Streep and Pierce
Yeah.
Brosnan. Um, but here was my reaction to when I saw the movie because I had not seen the stage production and I scrupulously avoided it. Watching Mamma Mia, I sat there. Did you see the same screening I did?
Oh
Were you at
yeah,
the same
I was
screening?
there.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I sat there with this look of you know how people when in Mel Brooks is the original producers, the look on people's faces in that shot of the audience when they realize what they're watching,
Yeah.
when he's with the whole Hitler and
Yeah.
Springtime for Hitler thing, that look of abject horror and shock, that was the look on my face for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of Mamma Mia. And then I basically just cried uncle and gave in. I did.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
gave in. So I wound up liking it, but basically taking a shower afterwards because I didn't love myself anymore.
Well, look, the ABBA, absolutely, but I don't know. But by the time we get to again, I'm stuck on these remakes because Diego Luna is
Yeah.
doing a remake of Scarface.
It's so wrong.
Again,
It's just so wrong.
and whatever. I suppose it's all homage to in a certain way. They love these movies. They grew up with these movies, but I don't know. Scarface is Scarface. Pacino. It's
Yeah.
already we're good. We're good. We're solid with Scarface.
And the
But-
all-female Ocean's 8.
Yeah, that's gonna. I'm just. And again, you know me. I love my gals. I love my women. But no,
No.
It's gonna be Ghostbusters.
It will be.
all
It
over
will be.
again.
It
you
will
know?
be.
No, just think of something else.
Yeah.
And-
Well, it's like the problem that I have with the new Greatest American Hero. They basically created an entirely different show and then decided to call it Greatest
Greatest
American,
American
Hero.
Hero.
No, it's not the same show. It's not even close. It's fine what you came up with, but give it a different title.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Just anyway. All right. Well, I'm going to start today with a big old stack of cult, and we got some great cult stuff, some really cool cult stuff. We haven't covered the whole Grindhouse thing in a little while, so I'm going to hit some of these. You're definitely going to want to get some of these. There's some real, there are labels, there are entire labels that are dedicated to culty stuff, and this is kind of quasi culty. But I'm going to include it here anyway, just because of when it was made and what it's about. This is from Raro Video, which distributes through Kino these days. Raro Video typically releases primarily Italian stuff of a sort of cult and genre, gangster movies and some horror stuff from the 1960s and 70s. Typically. Always comes with a great Blu-ray and a book and a really nice slipcover. So Raro Video does a lot of great stuff. You can learn more about them at Raro Video USA. That's RARO, videousa.com. This one is called The Teenage Prostitution Racket, which is as exploitation a title as I've ever heard, by Carlo Lazzani. And essentially, this is a look at the toll of the sex trade and sex in life generally through a series of kind of episodic vignettes that are all some are obviously more interesting than others, but they're all really quite interesting and provocative, and done in that kind of very garish with those garish colors and the very sort of just that gritty sort of style of the 1970s that we associate with Italian mobster movies and a lot of other Italian genre films. Anyway, really a very, very interesting film, DTS dual mono audio, and it is The Teenage Prostitution Racket by Carlo Lazzani from 1975. We also have the beloved Basket Case in a nice new special edition, custom case. This is, I'm going to cough. Here we go.
There we go.
Tickling my throat.
I love Basket Case.
Basket Case is great. Made in the 1980s for no money whatsoever. This is like one of the last of the 70s Grindhouse movies. It just kind of trickled into the 1980s and 1982. It's bloody. It's it was the first film that Frank Henenlotter did before he went on to do things like Frankenhooker, which I still think is utterly hysterical. And you know what, Basket Case still works. I mean, it's the whole kind of psychotic Sweeney Todd-ish butchering excess of it is it still kind of works. You know, the idea is that this guy Dwayne Bradley um, i- keeps his he was born a Siamese twin,
Yeah.
and his twin they've since been separated, but he keeps his hideous,
Yeah.
horrible,
Yeah.
demon-like detached twin in a basket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they you know
The twin gets away every now and then.
anyway, it's quite a crazy movie. Anyway, it's fun stuff. There are so many extras on this. It's not even funny. This is from Arrow, and it's really one of the most unbelievably jam-packed Arrow releases I've seen in a very, very long time. Frank Henenlotter does a 2017 interview, which I love this. This just tells you how much fun they're having with this. When they describe when you read through the extras on the back of this, they even describe it as a brief interview with director Frank Henenlotter, a strange 2017 interview with the director. They even tell you it's a strange interview. It's fantastic. No, but there's there's even the original archival commentary with Henenlotter and some of his collaborators is on here, which is still better than the new commentary that they put together with Henenlotter, which is still fine. Feature-length documentary on all of the Basket Case films, where there's 3 of them in total. Featurette on going back to the original locations. I mean, animated shorts. It's just tons of stuff here. Basket Case in a terrific new special edition that if you're a fan of this film or this genre, you're going to love it. Severin releases an awful lot of really, really cool culty stuff, and they always release them in these great black plastic Blu-ray cases that are just unmistakable. A couple of terrific ones here. Jess Franco films both The Sadist of Notre Dame and Sinfonia Erotica. Now, Tim has very strong feelings about Jess Franco. Who is the sort of the Spanish exploitation king of the 60s and 70s. These are right near the end of his, I guess, do we want to call it a golden period?
Well,
Anyways, 1979 and 1980. The Sadist of Notre Dame, they're silly. They're just really silly, and they're really excessive, and it's lots of nudity and violence and whatnot. All of it sort of adapted from medieval Marquis de Sade stuff, and it's whatever.
Jess Franco.
It's Jess Franco, but it's still even though they're made in 79 and 80, they look like they might as well have been made in 69 and 70, and a lot of really interesting special features here, including a selected scenes commentary with Robert Monell, who is Jess Franco. Got like you'll get it when you like it. It's just he'll give you an insight into Franco that even Franco wouldn't. There's also The Gory Days of Librady, which is a documentary short on the legendary Parisian horror cinema that is connected to The Sadist of Notre Dame. And you'll if you are a fan of these films, this genre, you will thoroughly enjoy it. The acting is just horrendous. And if you are even a fan of the writings of the Marquis de Sade, some of which actually has literary merit, you will see none of that in Sinfonia Erotica. I want to remind you the connection to the Marquis de Sade is tangential at best.
Just made a movie called Downtown Heat. Early 90s, 90 whatever. Mike Connors, Mike Connors.
Sure.
Mannix was like the lead in it, which I guess tells you a whole lot about.
Yeah.
Mike Connors in 1990. Anyway, whatever.
And then we also have 3 Blu-rays from Synapse, who also releases a lot of great genre stuff. The most interesting one of these is not the one that people might think. It's a special edition of Path of Blood, and Path of Blood is really quite a. This is actually a recent film. This is not a vintage grindhouse film or anything. This is from 2016. It's only an hour long, but it is it's kind of a really rudimentary animated tribute to Japanese samurai films. And even though the animation is very rough, they say that it's done in the style of South Park. I guess a little bit. I mean, it's a little South Parky, but I think it's better than that. but it's really actually quite fun. And if you know the films that it's riffing on, especially the Shogun Assassin movies and Lone Wolf and Cub
Yeah.
movies that are basically the same thing, you'll have a real fun time with it. It's the filmmaker here is Eric Power, and I hope he does a lot more stuff because Path of Blood is really, really quite a lot of fun. On the more noteworthy level is Dario Argento's Suspiria,
Daria, yeah.
2-disc Blu-ray special edition, gobbed with extras. Suspiria from 1977 is one of Dario Argento's most famous films. It is it's probably his most. I mean, it's tough to say between this and Tenebrae. I don't know which
Yeah.
one's more iconic. But it's made the same year as Star Wars. Worth noting. It's
You know he's in post production on a remake.
of Suspiria. Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard that.
yeah.
Well, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Doesn't really need to be a remake.
Dario gave us two cool things. One of them is a Suspiria. The other one is Aja.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the whole thing takes place inside a dance academy, and the horrible things that go on inside. And Synapse Films went and did a new 4K restoration of this directly from the original negative. It's gorgeous to look at. It's a fantastic Blu-ray. Whether you like the film or not, that's your taste. But they really, really just jam it with extras. There's a really interesting 30-minute visual essay by a filmmaker named Michael Mackenzie. There's a featurette on the original German locations, which is really interesting. There's a new anniversary retrospective of the film, and that tries to make a case that it was more influential than I think it really was. But all this stuff is really, really quite interesting. So I'd almost say for the extras alone, it's worth checking out. And then lastly, from Synapse is Unearthed and Untold, The Path to Pet Cemetery. This is a little bit of a detour. This is kind of a documentary tribute to the book and the movie that was made in 1989 from the book, and also a kind of a tribute to the places in Maine that serve as the backdrop and the inspiration for it. So it's if you're not a fan of the book or the movie, you're not going to want to get this. But it's a nostalgia piece. It's quite a lot of fun.
Well, Mary Lambert directed that film. Yeah, and people forget. I mean, that long ago.
Yeah.
She was one of those
89.
89, those early women directors out there. Mary Lambert
And never had the career she deserved.
Yeah.
Really a very effective film.
Yeah, well, they made another one, Edward Ferguson. I mean, I did the junket for Pet Cemetery 2.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then lastly, Vinegar Syndrome. We love Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome, it's a great name for a company. We got a DVD and 2 Blu-rays here. The DVD doesn't need to be a Blu-ray because it's the elements here are 16 millimeter movies. There's no reason to transfer 16 millimeter to Blu-ray, people. It just doesn't make sense. This is a really bizarre, fringy, erotic thriller called Night Caller. And Night Caller was made in 1975, and nobody saw it then, and I'm not sure that anybody saw it since then, but it's really, really bad and unbelievably enjoyable to look at. They restored the elements in 2K. I don't know that they really needed to. I think the nastier and grittier this looks, the better. But it's an old school sexploitation film, as you might have expected in the 60s, except it's done with kind of 70s social sensibilities, which makes it kind of an unusual oddity in its own genre. It's a little bit along the same veins of oh gosh, what's what was the Doris Wishman film I'm trying to think of?
Which one?
Oh gosh,
for volleyball?
No. This is, I mean, it's basically a woman who the Buñuel film is Belle de Jour.
Belle de Jour.
And before Belle de Jour, there were a variety of other films in the exploitation arena that did similar stories of women, with secret lives of prostitution.
Yeah, hookers.
I mean, it's sort of the dark side.
Oh, What's Your Name in the Afternoon?
Yeah. It's the dark side of women's liberation, right? Yeah. So that's the idea there, the cautionary tales. And then 2 Blu-rays from Vinegar Syndrome. We have Mary Mary with Constance Money. Now, if your name is Constance Money, you're probably not a legit actress. This was a quote unquote X-rated movie at the time. It is. I wouldn't call it necessarily pornography. It's certainly
Not by today's
no,
standards.
not by today's standards at all. This is also scanned from the original 35 millimeter negative into 2K. Again, didn't really need it, but it's kind of a romp. I think it means to be funnier than it probably is. It does have a Boogie Nights vibe to it. Constance Money was most famous for starring in a movie called Misty Beethoven, which was much more of an adult movie. Mary Mary, both of Mary exclamation point, Mary exclamation point, is kind of a minor entry in this genre, but for fans, you'll probably enjoy it. And then lastly, Jama Fanaka's Penitentiary, which is a really significant movie historically. Because it's sort of the tail end of the blaxploitation era, 1979. It basically introduces us to Leon Isaac Kennedy, and it's very much sort of a transitional film, I would say, in many respects, because it technically belongs to the blaxploitation era, but in terms of style and in terms of approach and themes, it's kind of moving into the 1980s. It's moving to a different place. And Leon Isaac Kennedy is very, very good in it. But Jamal Fanaka really, I'm sorry that he didn't have a better career.
Yeah.
I actually.
Yeah, I mean, those penitentiary movies, and
Yeah.
Ernie Hudson,
Yeah.
it shows up in some of the, and they were a thing in the black community, way back
Right.
in the day,
Right.
The way they, and you're right, Fanaka, I would a bigger,
Here's the thing about Fanaka. I went to a. He's no longer with us. He passed. When did he
not
pass?
that, but maybe not that 2012, maybe.
Yeah, it was something like
not
that.
Terribly long ago.
And he let me see here. I'm gonna look it up. He passed 2012, April 1st, 2012. Almost exactly 6 years ago. It's really interesting. I went to a blaxploitation retrospective when they had it at the New Art Theater here, which must have been, gosh, around 2001, 2002. Well, it was when we wrote that piece.
The big article, the big,
So we wrote a like a double-sided retrospective for Entertainment Today. So that's 90s.
That's a little
That's
early.
90s. So that's even early 90s. And it was and there was a kind of a what do you want to call it? Like a Q&A day where a lot of these people, Ron O'Neill was there. Jamal Fanaka was there.
The guy that played the Max Julian.
Yes, Max Julian was there. They all were there for a big Q&A with the audience. It wasn't part of the screening part of the series. It was like an interaction to retrospective. And Jamal Fanaka was there. And he was there with his little girl, who was probably, 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that. And I had never been a huge fan of his films in particular. I kind of like the older stuff. I like the Rudy Ray Moore stuff, and obviously, but he said something that I thought was amazing. And he said, and he's holding his little girl. He's up there taking questions, holding his little girl in his arms. And he said, I treat every single day as if it were the last, because I want every single day to be the best day that I spend with her. And I almost started crying. I just thought, this is like, suddenly I had a whole new understanding of the penitentiary films, right? Like now I understood what a big-hearted guy he was, and all of the exploitation-y stuff kind of fades away, and you see a whole different level in those movies when you suddenly know that about him, and it was very interesting. So I really, I wish he had had a longer career. I really do. Having
whole
had that
LA
moment.
Rebellion period, and all
Really
those filmmakers
interesting.
came out of it.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Right, so that's it. That's it for the exploitation stuff. Let's jump into new movies.
I guess these are new movies, right?
Yeah.
Brie Larson, who I adore.
Dear.
She made this unfortunate movie,
Basmati Blues.
Basmati Blues.
I'm a little more forgiving of it, but
good intentions, good intentions all the way. Anyway, it's about this young woman, a young doctor who's working for this company. She goes to India to sell GMO rice. Just the whole thing that has to do with GMO and rice.
None of this makes any sense.
It's this whole thing goes. Meets a young Indian man, a young man, a college student, and what's going on. And she finds out, of course, that the corporation she works for, Donald Sutherland, is in the movie, is doing something dastardly to.
Yeah.
And they wrap her up in all of these Indian clothes, and and they're this is just no, this is unfortunate.
So here's the thing.
Kind of like what was the one with Victoria and Abdul, Victoria and
Yes.
Abdul about
Yeah,
when the
yeah.
Queen Victoria when she goes, kind of like that.
It's Brie Larson clearly she had a hand in producing this, I believe, as well. And the whole thing is so bizarre and misbegotten. Scott Bakula is her dad. It's just this weird, like, Western movie that wants to kind of halfway be a Bollywood musical. I don't know who this guy is who co-wrote and directed it, Danny Barron. I don't know how he got all these people to be in his movie. I really don't. It's just such an unusual, strange, misbegotten thing. But here's what it reminds me of. Do you remember from 1985 a movie called Water?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the only reason I remember this is because I was working at a theater as an usher when it opened,
No, okay.
and it opened and it was gone in a week. It was gone in literally a week.
I remember that movie.
Nobody saw it.
Yeah.
So Water was a movie directed by Dick Clement in 1985, starring Michael Caine, and everybody showed up in this movie because George Harrison produced it. And so George Harrison got everybody that he could to throw him a bone and just show up in it for some reason. Ringo Starr and Billy Connolly, Eric Clapton, Brenda Vaccaro, all these people just show up in this movie for no reason. Valerie Perrine shows up for no reason whatsoever. The idea here is that there's
Yeah,
this,
I'm looking at that one sheet with him standing there with
the hat and the whole thing.
I'm like, oh yes,
it's ridiculous. So the idea basically has to do with water that is a laxative and a colony in the Caribbean, and everybody wants the water. And I don't even remember what the plot was. I just remember watching this and just thinking, this is such a weird cultural collision nonsense. Anyway, Basmati Blues does not warrant that much discussion, but it totally reminded me of that. I just felt like I was watching Water all over again, where all these disparate elements collide and just fight to somehow try to share space, and it doesn't come together.
Yeah, and of course, again, good intentions. The point of the movie is that she is trying to say, "Oh, look at us. We've treated these people so badly, but that's okay." And then you have the romance and they fight, but whatever. I'll go away. I'll go away. Now, on the other hand, another movie. This movie, Sweet Virginia, a hell of a little thriller here. That a lot of people didn't see, but I got to tell you, is a hell of a little thriller here.
Yeah.
John Bernthal and Christopher Abbott in this movie. It's
Bernthal, who plays Punisher.
Who plays Punisher?
Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. He was kind of an imposing guy, interesting guy. I first caught up with him in Walking Dead, I guess, when the early part of the Walking Dead. Anyway, it's just this little town, this little community. There's already been these murders in this community, and you have John there, and this Abbott comes in, this other guy comes to the town, and they have this odd little relationship, very tense, but they actually become friends. And the question of obviously the issue of the murders, all of that, and man, this movie becomes just the most intense little pot boiler.
Nice.
Just heavy, and excellent performances. You got Imogene Poots in this movie and Rosemary DeWitt in this movie.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would have done better.
Yeah.
But, it's just one of those things because it is really, really good. Marketing is hard. But anyway, it's a hell of a little thriller. It got some good reviews. Anyway, DVD here, not a whole lot on it.
And I love Ferdinand. I don't mind admitting it.
Yeah.
So Ferdinand the Bull, of course, started as a Disney short many, many decades ago. And Disney, was adapted from a book. And Disney, I guess, did not maintain the copyright on it, and which is unusual. So Ferdinand falls in the public domain and winds up as a 20th Century Fox feature film, which will now once again be in the Disney fold once Disney absorbs 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
So karma, man.
It's just Disney wins, baby. Disney wins
every single time. So here's Ferdinand is, of course, from the Blue Sky people who gave us Ice Age and all the other 20th Century Fox animated films. Ferdinand, I'm going to say, is the best.
John Cena is actually very good in this movie.
He's really good.
His voice.
Yeah, I find this, and it doesn't have much to do with the previous Disney film or the book per se. The idea here is that Ferdinand is a bull who just doesn't want to be a bull. He's just sweet, doesn't want to fight. He's just sweet and loving and just wants a family. And I found the whole thing to be just so incredibly funny and clever. And my daughter to this day, we took her to see it, and she enjoyed it. But what she enjoyed more than the movie was watching me laugh my ass off at this movie. There are two things in this movie that are insanely funny. There are these hedgehogs,
Yeah.
which are just they're just a stone cold riot, and then there are these German horses which had me in tears. I was crumpled over. I was curled up into a fetal position, just laughing myself unconscious. It was so funny. Those German horses.
Kate McKinnon, great.
Could
Bobby Cannavale,
fantastic.
great. You know,
And I will give nothing away. I will just say there are some sight gags in this thing that are right up there with the best that you've ever seen with the Marx Brothers.
yeah.
They are great. They are really great sight gags. Didn't win an Oscar. It was nominated.
Yeah.
You know, going up against Coco is
Yeah.
an unwinnable proposition. But Ferdinand on 4K Ultra HD absolutely deserves it. Movies Anywhere, get to add it to that as well. The extras are, they're fine. There's a Nick Jonas music video and a few kind of diddly featurettes. They're not really a big deal. But the movie really, as a rewatchable, time and time again, family film for adults and kids, I think is the best thing that Blue Sky has ever done.
I think so too. Chokeslam. This was again another one of those neat little movies. Just these little indie movies came out. Christopher Marquette, and that you'll know, you might not know his name, but you'd know his face if you saw him. And this sort of like romantic little twisty-turny sort of movie, mostly do with women wrestlers. You got this guy, he's a mild man, everyday kind of guy. He has this girlfriend who he was in love with back in high school. And he has another shot at her. Turns out she's this badass, WWME wrestler chick who can kick his ass among a whole bunch of other hot chicks in this movie. And there's a lot of that in the film, a lot of those wrestlers in the film. It's a cute little movie. And, whatever. I wish it would have done better. But as romantic comedies go, it found a new little sort of take on the romantic comedy thing. And frankly, I love it whenever that happens.
Yep, for sure. Let's do. We have one. So we have our giveaway.
Oh, the giveaway. Yes, put it over there.
Got our giveaway. Forgot about this. How can we forget about the giveaway? Set it aside specially. So Permanent is our giveaway from Magnolia. Thank you, Magnolia. We have 4 copies of Permanent to give away. You're going to want to send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com, and just put Permanent in the subject line. And your name and address in the body of the email, please. Permanent in the subject line, name and email in the body of the email. And make sure that you get us the email, please, no later than the 6th, Friday the 6th. Make sure it's time and date stamped on Friday, April 6th. Again, the movie is Permanent with Rainn Wilson and Patricia Arquette. It is. This is one of those being a teenager is a really horrible business movies.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those. Keira McLean plays the 13-year-old girl here whose parents are Patricia Arquette and Rainn Wilson. And the whole thing takes place in a really garish, totally beautifully recreated 1982 small-town Virginia environment. And, it's all about it's the title takes its name from hair.
Yeah.
Because she gets a permanent. She has tough hair, rough hair. It's how hair impacts your social circle, your relationships with people, and how this is sort of the beginning of the end for all of her attempts to fit in with the new school. And there are issues with the teachers and all this other stuff. And of course, at the same time, her dad, Rainn Wilson, is trying to sort of improve his position with the worst toupee you've ever seen in the world. And again, that's the other part of the hair equation here. Patricia Arquette is all frumped up and just wonderful as the mom. As a snapshot of 1982, particularly this milieu in 1982, and all the issues that surround the hellishness of teenage years, Permanent is quite a lot of fun. Nice packaging, slipcover with all kinds of early 80s leftover disco motifs on it. I think you can have a lot of fun with this. This is on Blu-ray, and a few extras, alternate scenes, deleted scenes, and featurettes. And we are giving away 4 of them. So please send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. Time and date stamped by Friday, April 6th. Put Permanent in the subject line and your name and address in the body of the email, and we will pick 4 winners by April 6th and let you know that following weekend and send these on out to you.
Yeah, they do the thing. Do the thing. Where are we going?
TV.
I got a little TV. I got some TV,
TV.
here. I got some TV right in my
Knock
hand.
it. Knock it.
13 Reasons Why, a fairly controversial series. First season of 13 Reasons Why. So this was the series that was about a young woman who left a tape for several people explaining the 13 reasons why she committed suicide some 2 weeks
This has been quite controversial.
Quite controversial. And whatever. I guess no point in hashing that all out here. People can sort of look that up. It certainly is a very well-made series, very well acted. I can tell that they're trying to be sensitive to the issues.
Yeah.
Obviously, whether or not they achieve the correct level of sensitivity, I suppose, is for people to sort of like discern for themselves. But that's what's going on in the show. This box is just an absolutely gorgeous box. I love the way they've done that sort of photography there with the reflection and a little relief right there. So anyway, it's a deeply moving and powerful series. This includes several special features, behind the scene things regarding the film, and obviously a discussion of some of the controversial material in the film. So at least when you get this, you get the controversy and a sort of explanation of what they're thinking.
Yes. Really interesting show here, The Governor, the complete collection. Now, it's important here to understand that in the British TV sense, this is from Acorn TV. This is a British show from the mid-1990s.
Yeah, Janet McTeer.
It's important to understand that governor in the British sense means warden in our sense. So prisons have governors over there. So a better way to say this, the warden, what might be the way that would make sense here. This is the complete collection of this brief but amazing series, 12 episodes that ran in 95 and 96. Janet McTeer has kind of made a little bit of a comeback in season 2 of Jessica Jones on Netflix.
Yeah.
Janet McTeer is, which I'm not terribly fond of. I guess I should say I love her acting on season 2 of Jessica Jones. I just don't know that I like the inclusion of her character on season 2 of Jessica Jones, if that makes sense. But anyway, Janet McTeer is a powerful actress and always has been. She stands about 6'1".
Oh, she's a big gal.
She's really tall and imposing.
Tumbleweeds, I think, was the first one.
That was her Oscar nomination. Yeah. And she is she is a powerful presence here. The idea here is that this all takes place at a place called Barfield Prison. And there's a riot and all kinds of awful things happen, and the warden, the governor, is fired, and she gets the new job. So she is a tough woman who now has to run an all-male prison, and that obviously is a great setup for good acting, interesting dynamics, class dynamics, race dynamics. There's all kinds of really interesting stuff that goes on. And some tremendous supporting parts here. Sophie Okonedo, who would go on to act and get an Oscar nomination for Hotel Rwanda. Eamon Walker, who has since been on Oz and Chicago Fire. These are all really, really amazing actors. And Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Idris Elba. So you see the birth of a lot of tremendous performers in this really, really tough, gritty show, which came to us from Linda LaPlante, who also created Prime Suspect. So really tough show. The Governor, the complete collection from Acorn. Really good.
The wonderful The Handmaid's Tale season 1, which Hulu gave us,
won the Emmy.
Streaming. You just never know. I remember covering the film who made that film back in '90, whatever it was, Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
Anyway, it didn't quite work, that film. But this series reconstructed and reset in the present day or slightly in the future, reconceiving the sort of circumstances of all of this a bit. And then with these extraordinary performances, Elizabeth Moss at the center of it playing Offred. It's just really an amazing series.
I'm thrilled for Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, yeah.
She, between this and the Jane Campion thing, she her television profile has really gone up, and she used to just be kind of a supporting actress. She'd show up in this and that and the other thing.
Walked around Mad Men, right, for a long time, I think, and all that kind of stuff. But there she is.
She's
and you know what? And I'll say this, and I hope people will take it in the way that I mean it. She's not traditionally what we would call beautiful.
No.
She's lovely,
Yeah.
but not traditionally beautiful. Yet she plays these roles where she has to be the thing that draws the attention of men in this very particular way, and certainly her presence does that.
Yeah.
You believe it completely and totally, despite the fact that she's, not Margot Robbie or whatever, just to pick
Right.
up, whatever. Anyway, the first season of The Handmaid's Tale, quite powerful, and I suggest people get it. Special features here, script to screen. So that one of those things where you can take a look at the extras and see how it was all translated to the screen. Beautiful stuff, beautiful stuff. The Handmaid's Tale.
I got 3 more from Acorn TV here, and then another one that I'm just going to give a real quick shout out to. When Calls the Heart. This thing just does not stop. It just keeps on coming. So if you love this real goopy Hallmark stuff from the Michael Landon Family Factory, based on the Jeanette Oki novels, When Calls the Heart of Homecoming. Oh my goodness, I'm waiting for the one called the Heart of Blood. Oh, that'll be when they go all giallo on us. But, you just love people looking sweet and wearing Canadian Mountie uniforms, and it's just having love and family and all kinds of whatever. It's getting a little excessive, but gosh, people just love this, and it keeps Hallmark going strong. The Acorn TV stuff continues to be really, really powerful. One here that I was completely unfamiliar with, and the other 2 are just kind of continuing things. I'll give you the update on those on Blu-ray and DVD. The Brokenwood Mysteries Series 4, which continues to be really, really solid. Just great, New Zealand style British procedural mystery crime solving, basically. But the New Zealand backdrop really does matter. It's really, really a great show. The Brokenwood Mystery Series 4, particularly sharp on because the backdrop is so gorgeous, particularly sharp on Blu-ray. A Place to Call Home Season 5 offers us a wonderful snapshot of Australian life and drama and intrigue in 1958. Really quite interesting. 1958 in Australia isn't so far different from 1958 in America.
Yeah.
And I've always found the parallels between the two cultures and countries to be quite interesting. So continues to be very, very good. I wish this was on Blu-ray because it just, again, like New Zealand, the backdrops are just so beautiful. So hopefully that'll happen at some point. But it's I want to say it's a little Thornbird-y. It's not quite that goopy and that soapy, but it has some similar aspects to it. And then this is what I was completely unfamiliar with before: Love, Lies, and Records. This is an Acorn TV original, and it takes place this is a drama, but with some kind of lighter edges to it. It's interesting. I almost don't even know how to describe the genre this fits into, because it's funny, it's dark, it's insightful, and it means to be, because it all takes place inside of a British register office, which is that's like the public recorder's office here. So everything that happens in anybody's life of any significance is going to pass through the registrar's office. Not exactly what I would imagine to be an interesting place. I would just think it's a whole lot of dull paperwork and clerical work. But they find an interesting way here to put a character right in the middle of this. Senior Registrar Kate Dickinson, played by Ashley Jensen. And to somehow make that job situation, that environment, a linchpin for all these very, very interesting character and story threads and relationship threads. And it's really, it works. It's very, very interesting. It's oftentimes much funnier than I would have expected it to be, and sometimes a lot darker than I would have expected it to be. So Love, Lies, and Records is a really, really cool new entry from Acorn TV. And looking forward, hopefully, to more of this. This is 6 episodes on 2 discs, so we could do with a lot more of this.
Fascinating. I have in my hand the first season of The Outer Limits. Tell me if you think this is true.
Okay.
There are Outer Limits people and Twilight Zone people, and generally speaking, they're not the same people. I happen to be both.
Yeah, I am too.
And I suppose you might throw Night Gallery people into
Yeah.
that grouping too.
Yeah.
I like both because to me they're sort of distinctive in a bunch of different ways. For one thing, The Outer Limits was much more about science. I mean,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff with a lot more about science. Twilight Zone, you never knew what the hell was going to happen in the
True.
Twilight Zone. And Night Gallery, of course, is just straight up horror.
Yeah.
But the Outer Limits, I gravitated to a bit more because science, generally speaking, was at the center of whatever the
Right.
hell was going on in
Yeah.
the Outer Limits, and I was one of those guys. A lot of them are about space, this and space aliens and all that kind of stuff. Nevertheless, the entire first season of The Outer Limits, 32 episodes. There is nothing wrong with your television set. You know what? When it would open that way, when I was a real little kid, I would always go test that.
Yep.
I'd get up, go over there, and turn it off.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I still had control, turn it back on. I love The Outer Limits. Fantastic. Gorgeous box, too.
I am thrilled this is finally on Blu-ray because, Twilight Zone's been on Blu-ray forever and in several different incarnations. And The Outer Limits was first released on Blu-ray or first released on DVD in 2002 and 2003. And then they kind of tried to refashion it a little bit, and they repackaged it and released it again in 2007. And they finally gave us a box set in 2008. And then for the last 10 years, nobody's done anything with it. And finally, it's like, hey, yeah, totally, way to go. So thank you, Kino Lorber and 20th Century Fox for finally giving us the long overdue Blu-ray of The Outer Limits, the first season. Bring on the rest of the episodes.
Nah.
I want all the rest.
I for whatever reason, I found myself slipping into binging the first season of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, a perfectly ludicrous UK TV show. For whatever reason, Elijah Wood is in, along with a bunch of British actors. It's an interesting thing. It's sort of goofy, sort of detective who draws in all of these wacky characters, including Elijah Wood into being sort of his sidekick. Well, this is season 2. If you thought season 1 was wacky, season 2 is twice as wacky.
Yes,
but it's a lot of fun too. Here, the detective and his group of sidekicks have to save the Earth from alien invaders and all kinds of. The BBC show. I thoroughly enjoy Dirk Gently. Holistic Detective Agency, and I got to think that most people would. There is a bonus feature, a recap of season 1. So if you haven't seen season 1, if you pick up this, they'll do a little recap for you. But I suggest you go just binge it, watch it, and then this will be that much more fun.
I got a lot of real funny stuff for you here. So we're going to start with some just classic volumes 1 and 2 of the very best of Victor Borge. Volume 1 has 7 specials, and Volume 2 has 8 specials and a bonus CD. These are from PBS. And Victor Borge is just one of the first people who ever made me laugh to the point of losing control of my bowels. I loved him as a kid. I've loved him as an adult. It's just so unbelievably funny. When I was learning piano as a kid, I developed a very special appreciation for what he was doing, because Victor Borge is a concert-trained pianist.
Yes.
An amazing history, by the way, his life. If you don't know much about his life, Victor Borge is a Danish Jew, and there's a whole kind of Holocaust-era drama that leads up to this. And yet he is just one of the funniest, most brilliant, original talents of all time. Especially his verbal punctuation.
Yeah.
So many original things. Such a great, great original. And all in a language that is not his original language. It's just beyond funny. Let me underline this. This is 17 hours of Victor Borge, and it's
over how many years? It's got to be over.
Oh yeah, decades.
Yeah.
And it's not enough. I could do with at least twice as much. This is just, you can watch it. You can put this on a loop. My daughter will definitely be acquainted with this. And then Rowan Martin's Laugh In.
Oh my God, I watch that every day.
Complete 3rd season.
Yep.
3rd season, this thing's really hitting its stride.
Just a gem, just a cultural archive.
Yeah.
Of humans, of people from the culture, but also ideas and thoughts and the scene of the day, the things that they would talk about. So much of which, I literally do watch it every day. It comes on one of the broadcast channels where they play nothing but old shows.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this show and I'm seeing Dick Cavett and I'm seeing Richard Pryor and I'm seeing Lily Tomlin.
This is a great season. I mean, obviously Goldie Hawn was a regular on the show, and she's still very much in our consciousness. But Henry Gibson. You know, I knew Henry Gibson's son when I was in school.
That's fine.
And you know, really just a lot of great people. But honestly, when you look at the people who guest on this, it's amazing,
including Richard Nixon.
Third season alone has some of the people who are just icons of the period, whose names I never even think about outside this era. Flip Wilson, Engelbert Humperdinck, the Monkees. You know, it's just Frank Sinatra and Nancy Sinatra, Sonny and Cher, Ringo Starr, who just got knighted. It's really great.
And again, you know, the show, you know, that format, which will never be duplicated, by the way. Saturday Night Live is not the same thing. A lot of people say Saturday Night Live. It's not the same thing at all, not remotely. So topical. The war, the Pope, all again. You know, it's sort of, to me, when I watch that show, it makes me much more calm about the circumstances of our society today. When I watch a show like Laugh-In, because it reminds me that, you know what, this is all the same.
Yeah,
there's not a single different thing in the universe.
No.
Not a new thought, not a new idea. We got some new technology, but that's all. All the ideas are the same. So, you know, when things are going goofy, I just watch Laugh-In and forget about it. You know the other thing I watch? Oh, you got two more of those?
Two more real quickly. Peyton Place, third season, is just a stone cold riot. Peyton Place was a soapy movie that they turned into a soapy TV show in the 60s. And this is from 1965. Very young Mia Farrow, unbelievably young Ryan O'Neal, really soap it up in this precursor to Dallas and Dynasty. And along with, you know, old schoolers like Dorothy Malone and Barbara Perkins. I still kind of have fun with this because it's just so cheesy. Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing that works about this anymore. It's just funny to. It's
an archive of a period.
It's just an archive of a period. And then the Robot Chicken Walking Dead special, which I've not been hugely fond of Robot Chicken, but I got to be honest, this one's pretty darn funny. This is just going zombie with stop motion animation for some reason just is unbelievably funny. So I applaud them for actually even thinking that they could go there, that they could take their whole Robot Chicken animation thing into the world of zombies and The Walking Dead. Really quite a lot of fun, and also comes with digital copy.
Yeah, funny, dude. I'm so glad you let me do this one, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This is a collection. This is the 1968, 1918 50-year collection, which is weird because 1968 to 2001 is how long this show ran. But nevertheless, it would be the 50th year. This includes 30 classic episodes, so it's curated. It's not every single episode. There are over 890 odd episodes for the actual show. But this does include the original pilot, black and white pilot of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Let me just say that, you know, Fred Rogers, this show, it was just a most extraordinary thing. Many of the most important lessons I learned about being a human came from Fred Rogers, and I think that's probably true of a whole lot of people. I mean, even more than Sesame Street for me. I know a lot of people our age, it would have been Sesame Street for them. You know, I enjoyed Sesame Street. I was a Sesame Street kid, sure I was. Big Bird and all of that. But Mr. Rogers was a human, and despite all of those other characters, Mr. Rogers was this human. And I gotta tell you, and again, this is coming from, you know, a brother who lived in the hood.
Yeah.
Cranking up this dude every afternoon.
Yeah.
Would just settle a brother down. You know, I'd be like, oh, okay, you know, there's a cat like that, and he would, and so it was just a beautiful thing. So this is the 4-disc set. It's that the original black and white pilot, right through episodes through every decade, including right up to 2001.
Here's my, you know, I watch Mr. Rogers every afternoon as well. Like I think everybody did. Here's what came through for me. And you don't know it at the time. You don't know really what attracts you to him or his show with that tinkly music and the whole thing. But you look forward to it. And here's what it was for me as I look back on it. It was kindness.
Mm-hmm.
The show was kind, and it was personal. And he looked right into that camera, and he took advantage of television in a way that people took advantage of it in the early days of television in the 1950s, and which by the 1970s, people had kind of forgotten that it had that power. Everything was about, you know, sizzle and TV and cutting and drama and action and funny, and that just the idea of being very simple and one camera and personal and just reaching through that camera and talking to people. it still mattered to kids.
Yeah.
And for kids who need somebody to be kind to them, whether they're being picked on at school or they have no siblings or they're in a broken family, whatever it is, that kindness mattered.
If your own dad
Yeah.
was not like that,
Yeah.
that guy was a hell of a surrogate dad.
It was great. Yeah.
Fantastic show.
A couple of Blu-rays here. One 4K, the other one just regular Blu-ray. The regular Blu-ray is Nightfall Season 1 from the History Channel. The History Channel trying to do a little bit of the same thing that they did with Vikings by telling the story of the Knights Templar and dramatizing the Knights Templar in the same way that they've dramatized Vikings, weaving a little bit of history in with a whole lot of bloodshed and gore and sexy drama and as much as you can do on the History Channel. It's kind of the same formula. It is, I think, similarly problematic on a lot of levels. Vikings is interesting because my ancestor, who was the first Duke of Normandy, has become a character on Vikings in the last few years. And it's a little weird looking at Vikings and going, that's not my family. But anyway, the Nightfall is, I know a fair amount about the history of the Knights Templar, as I was a history major before I was a film major. So a lot of this stuff was on my radar. And this really takes some pretty loose liberties. I give them credit for not going completely off the reservation. They still try to weave in bits of history in a significant way, and they kind of do. The Holy Grail stuff gets a little bit wonky, but still, it's for sort of third tier Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah.
It's not on the same level of Game of Thrones. It's not even on the same level as what they're doing now on Into the Badlands, which is just sensational. But it's maybe a half a notch better than Vikings, I think, just because it's a more interesting milieu. So Nightfall Season 1, let's see where it goes. And then Blue Planet 2, 4K Ultra HD from BBC Earth. I can't tell you how just gorgeous this is. If you want something that will show off your 4K television and your 4K Blu-ray player better than anything else, this is it, Blue Planet 2. This is your new reference standard. It is just literally showing the most amazing photography the world has to offer, of the most amazing sights all around the world. Obviously, primarily, the oceans and things pertaining to the oceans. And the environmental theme behind it obviously is extremely relevant. But more relevant to me is this will make your whole 4K setup just blow up, and it will show everybody why you got to switch to 4K. It is tremendous.
Fantastic. The complete eighth season of Archer. The animated series. So here's the thing. 2009. Archer comes out. I watch Archer. Got the joke. Quit watching Archer. Never watched it again because I got the joke. It was fine. It was funny. But you know what? Don't want to see this every damn day.
I agree with you completely. I got it in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm out. But nevertheless, it hung around for another decade or so. This is the complete eighth season. It's still just about the same show that it was when it started, oddly enough. This has special features, audio commentary on select episodes. 2-disc set contains a total of 8 episodes. Enjoy your 8th season of Archer.
All right, let's see what we can get done here. We got a few minutes left in the show. A whole lot of classic movies that we have here. Kino has really just bombed us lately with some unbelievably great stuff. And I'm gonna roll through the Kino lineup here. I am a mad fan of W.C. Fields. My father had interfaced with W.C. Fields a little bit, admired him greatly, and always kind of trotted him out to me as a great example of somebody who was an amazing wit, a very smart comedic talent in how he sort of used physical comedy and verbal comedy in a very low-key way. You watch W.C. Fields, you really are learning a lot. And, of course, came from vaudeville and that amazing training ground that gave us so many people in the early days of the movies. The two that they are giving us here, Running Wild and It's the Old Army Game, not really among the more well-known W.C. Fields movies. These are both, basically from the he started in the silent era, like a lot of these guys did, and then transitioned. And people forget that there was, we think obviously of Chaplin and Keaton and those guys who primarily were silent figures, but never, Harold Lloyd, but never really fully made the jump to the sound era. They always kind of struggled in the sound era. But there are those who started in the silence and hit their stride in the sound era, and that includes Laurel and Hardy. Yeah. And W.C. Fields was another one of those. It's the Old Army Game is a kind of a late silent from 1926, and we associate so much of W.C. Fields with the voice and the verbal comedy and all that you sometimes miss how great he was when he was in the silence, where he really kind of plied his trade. This was his fourth film, but this is allegedly the one where he kind of was able to make his form his persona and make his character, and it's adapted presumably from a play that he had written. So you do see how you're taking a play where there's dialogue and turning it into something silent where there isn't dialogue, and it's really very smart. It's really, really, really very smart. The whole idea here, the whole gimmick is rather simple, but he is so unbelievably funny, and it's such a smart film. This is mastered from the original Elements, from the version, the Elements preserved by the Library of Congress, and it's terrific. You also get an audio commentary from James Niebauer, who is the author of the W.C. Fields films. And then the 1927 film, Running Wild, which comes right after it, is, I think, the last silent film that he made before he went to the talkies. And this is even funnier and even smarter. It's black and white, obviously, again, and has another audio commentary on it by Niebauer. And once again, mastered from the Elements in the Library of Congress. But this is a little bit different. This is a little bit more slapsticky, not adapted from a play. This is written specifically for the film, for the screen. And you do see kind of a different sensibility to W.C. Fields here. You see somebody who, for a moment, was maybe going or thought that he might be going into a Max Sennett direction, and eventually chose not to. So if you want to fill out your understanding of W.C. Fields and the genius of his comedy, those two films are really essential. And then here are the rest of the Kino lineup: Fistful of Dynamite, otherwise known as Duck You Sucker, with Rod Steiger and James Coburn. This is just a rollicking Sergio Leone a kind of comedy western that came on the heels of the Eastwood films. It doesn't mean to be anything other than an awful lot of fun. Two guys just lighting it up. I sometimes compare this to like a spaghetti western version of The Man Who Would Be King. You're watching two guys have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Steiger and Coburn are just a great team together. No Orchids for Miss Blandish was kind of a scandal at the time. It's not really that scandalous to look at now. It's a very solid noir directed by Saint John L. Close, who isn't really that well remembered, but the movie is, and it certainly has some very interesting performances in it by people who are otherwise not very significant at the time. It is it's kind of basically a British noir, but it was remade into The Grissom Gang in 1971, which is a Robert Aldrich film that most people remember much more fondly, based on the same novel. But No Orchids for Miss Blandish has obviously a profile all its own. We've got Stingery with Irene Dunne and Richard Dix, directed by William Wellman, who had previously directed the Oscar-winning All Quiet on the Western Front. This takes place in Australia in the late 19th century. It's got an audio commentary by Wellman's son. It is a perfectly serviceable 1934 period melodrama. Nothing particularly, memorable about it. It just has a great cast. Richard Dix and Irene Dunne, both pretty terrific in it. The three that I'm going to recommend most highly here: Joan of Arc, starring Ingrid Bergman, directed by Victor Fleming. who, of course, did Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz. This was made in 1948 when Victor Fleming was kind of on the tail end of his career. This film catches a lot of flack. I actually think it's a very, very good film. Of all the many Joan of Arc films that have been made, it's obviously not the most faithful, but
It's not Theodore Dreyer or anything, but it's
Ingrid Bergman's really good in it. John Barrymore and Myrna Loy in David O. Selznick's Topaz, which is a wonderful movie from 1933, early sound era. Has a commentary on it by Kat Ellinger, which is very, very good. It's very much a movie of its day. It's clearly all shot, melodrama, period melodrama as well, all shot on a soundstage. But Barrymore is terrific. And then The Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. Tremendous movie.
Yes. Tour de force of acting.
They have the archival commentary from Anthony Harvey, the director, is on this. I know a little bit about Anthony Harvey because Anthony Harvey worked with my friend Martin on The Ultimate Solution of Grace Quigley, which Martin wrote and Anthony Harvey directed, and apparently not very well, in Martin's opinion, because Martin's writer's cut is recognized by Leonard Maltin as the only writer's cut in the history of the movies.
Oh.
And Martin will tell you all about why Martin's passed now.
Yeah,
passed, but he'd tell you all about why Anthony Harvey was really messed it up. But he did a great job on this movie. It's wonderful. You don't even know that Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn are like 20-some years apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Peter O'Toole is playing the same, he's playing King Henry the Second, is it? Just as he did in Beckett, but a much older version.
Yeah.
And then the last kino here is a double feature of Mike Binder films, Binder films, Crossing the Bridge and Indian Summer. I like Mike Binder a lot. I think he's a really underrated writer-director.
I did the junket for Crossing the Bridge and Josh Charles and all those guys.
Oh, did you?
Before that Baldwin went nuts. I think Stephen Baldwin.
You see, I'm not a huge fan of Crossing the Bridge, but I love Indian Summer.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Indian Summer, I just think, is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful, incredibly fun movie. And the main reason that I love Indian Summer is just the cast. It's a tremendous cast. Alan Arkin, Bill Paxton, Elizabeth Perkins, Kevin Pollak. Yeah. It's so much fun. So he learns a lot. This is about a bunch of people who go back to the summer camp that they enjoyed as kids 20 years later and try to relive the experience. And there's a very funny cameo in here too.
It's a sweet movie. I like it a lot. I got a couple of Hal Roaches. Hal Roach, of course, known for comedy. One of the DVDs features 3 Hal Roach films, classic comedies. Turnabout, which is really a neat movie. A movie that was based on a book by the guy who created the Topper series, which is kind of interesting. Housekeeper's Daughter, 1939 film. This one was kind of neat, too. Sort of a front-pagey murder mystery sort of thing, with a newspaper, a couple of newspapers investigating a murder and all this kind of thing. The one that I like the most, though, is Roadshow. This concept's fun. You could not do this concept today. It's about a guy with a lot of dough. He finds himself in a situation where he's committed himself to marrying this person who's plainly a gold digger, and how he gets out of it? He pretends to be crazy. You can't do that today. Anyway, so 3 classic Hal Roach films: Turnabout, Roadshow, and The Housekeeper's Daughter, and then Hal Roach from a 1939 film. Different sort of thing for him, Captain Fury, which is more of an action adventure, romance kind of thing rather than his classic sort of comedy thing, set in Australia and all that kind of stuff. What I like about this movie is buried way down in there. If you're paying attention, you will see John Carradine in this movie, Virginia Field, all of these people just, hardly anybody in 1939. Yeah. They're in this movie if you're looking close. So sort of neat. Hal Roach, Captain Fury from 1939.
We got 3 great ones from Olive as well. Olive Films has been licensing a lot of really fun stuff. The Hallelujah Trail with Burt Lancaster and Lee Remick from...
I love that movie.
1965.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's great, right? The best thing about this is the score by Elmer Bernstein.
Best thing about that is Lee Remick was fine as hell in 1965. That's the best thing.
She was. The Elmer Bernstein score is just terrific. John Sturges, of course, of the Dirty Dozen and many other great movies, directs the daylights out of this fantastic widescreen 2:3:5 aspect ratio. It's just gorgeous. One of the all-time great westerns of the 1960s with a tremendous cast: Burt Lancaster, Lee Remick, Jim Hutton, Pamela Tiffin. And this was made by the Mirish Corporation,
Yeah.
who was doing all the Pink Panther stuff and the Billy Wilder stuff. They were the first independent company, by the way.
Really?
And,
Walter
and
Mirisch is
Walter Mirish is still with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kicking it. And then also Great Balls of Fire with Dennis Quaid playing the legendary Jerry Lee Lewis. Not very well, I'm afraid.
Young Winona Ryder. I think she was like 14 or something.
Yeah.
when she did that movie.
You know,
So beautiful, it was ridiculous.
Dennis Quaid is a little bit miscast. He's acting the hell out of this part, and
Yeah.
he's overdoing it to try to be as flamboyant as Lewis was when he, just burned
with
up.
that leg out there.
But it's too much, you know.
Alec Baldwin played his Jerry Lee's cousin was Jimmy Swaggart, and I'm pretty sure
Yes.
Alec Baldwin played Jimmy Swaggart in that movie.
Yes, he does. And I wanted to like this more because I love Jim McBride as a director. Jim McBride's always made some fun films, but this movie just it's like it too much. It's just too much. It tries too hard, and it tries to sensationalize too much the whole issue of the relationship.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's it.
because
Well, anyway, it's there. It's on Blu-ray. All of
It
got a
gave
good
us,
get
gave
with
us
that.
Winona Ryder. That's
Winona
like
Ryder.
my first Winona Ryder movie.
And then John Frankenheimer's unbelievably great Birdman of Alcatraz from 1962, which won Burt Lancaster an Oscar, very deservedly. Another tremendous Elmer Bernstein score. Wonderful supporting performances, especially by Carl Malden, who's always just damn great, and Telly Savalas. This is just a really, really great movie.
Carl Malden and Telly Savalas. Those are two names you don't hear a whole lot.
You don't. And what a great, wonderful, wonderful movie. You know, the story of a guy in Leavenworth is not something that you would normally expect to be as heartwarming and humanistic as this is.
Yeah, a
And
prison
yet,
movie.
It's a prison movie, man. But it's great. It's just a wonderful movie, and everything about it is great. Edmund O'Brien is tremendous. You know, everything clicks. This is just one of Frankenheimer's very best, and a very unusual Frankenheimer movie. So, 1962, the tremendous Birdman of Alcatraz on Blu-ray. Thank you, Olive.
Indeed. A couple of these sort of disparate films. The Burbs, man. Tom Hanks had a funky little run there for a minute. The man with one red shoe.
It was bumpy.
Joe versus the volcano.
Burbs is bumpy.
The Burbs is was one of them. And an idea there.
But it has a following.
These people. Joe Dante film.
Yeah.
And this has all kinds of fantastic special features on it. So I don't. Look, if you're sort of Tom Hanks completist, I happen to be a fan of young, funny Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Splash,
Yes.
The Bachelor Party. I like that guy.
Yeah.
The guy that was running around in the dress on the TV show,
Yeah.
And then Tom Hanks, I guess about the time he hits what?
Bosom Buddies.
Bosom Buddies.
Yes.
About the time he hits Philadelphia. Now we got Academy Award nominee Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
And he's the Academy. He's that guy for about
The Jesus of the 90s.
Yeah, whatever with that guy, he's fine.
Yeah.
But I'd have shot his ass in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
But The Burbs is one of these sort of wacky. Tom Hanks is a little bit darker kind of guy movie. This particular DVD has an alternate ending on it, and it's worth it for that alone.
And that
Leatherface. However, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which, by the way, still came out in 1990, which tells you how old these damn movies are.
Yeah.
How far they go back to the, I guess, 70s, middle 70s was that first Leatherface movie. Based very loosely on the true story of a serial killer in Texas, who would do some absolutely horrible things. This particular film is not worth getting out of the box, except for the fact that Viggo Mortensen is in this movie.
No kidding. Why?
Got to start somewhere, baby.
Goodness. All right, and then last two are just completely from Mars here. They are from the Warner Archive collection. Tony Curtis and Monica Vitti in 1969's The Chastity Belt.
Dude, I love that movie. She is
from
so
Mars.
sexy in that movie.
Well, you know who wrote this?
Who?
Larry Gelbart.
Lit for MASH and
Yeah. I mean, it was okay. So let me back up just a little bit. So this is a very unusual thing. This was made by Seven Arts. Seven Arts was a company that was starting to do a lot of very unusual. And I say that that's an understatement. Seven Arts made just a lot of completely bonkers movies. And essentially, this is an Italian movie that gets a kind of an American makeover. So it's directed by Pasquale Festa Campanile. I don't know who he is. Don't care.
No.
Originally written by Luigi Magni. Don't care.
No.
But you know what? Larry Gelbart came on and he did something.
Got
and he
got to make it work for the Americans.
made it work. And
it's a ridiculous movie, but Monica Vitti is like ridiculous hot in that movie.
Just so completely bizarre and hilarious. So yeah, I give Larry Gelbart a lot of credit for making this movie what it is and working. It's a medieval comedy that it's not really even like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, although it'd make a great double feature between those two films.
It's closer to
Barbarella.
Yeah, something over there. Yeah.
It's like if Barbarella mated with knights that say knee, and I don't know. That's kind of what it is. But the whole idea of strapping her up with a chastity belt and sending her off on the crusades, that's basically what it is. Here, have a chastity belt, go on the crusades. Anyway, and then lastly, Thor and the Amazon Women.
Yeah.
Along with a movie called Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women.
Yeah, Venus, I think it is.
This is volume 20 of Frolic Pictures Grindhouse double features. And these movies were made in Thor and the Amazon Women is 63, Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women is 68. Just utterly bizarre. I'm unfamiliar with either of these. But Frolic Pictures is doing a great job finding and putting out some really weird.
After those, they look good.
They look fine.
Yeah.
They look fine. I mean, you throw this on when you have some friends over just to have something for laughs.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it's for. So Frolic Pictures is really doing a great job, kind of scraping the bottom of the grindhouse market there, and giving us a few little tidbits. So with that, we are done, and we will see you next week.
Bye bye. Have you ever? You or Mark have the great crazy Ken Russell story?
Oh yeah, we've told it on this show before.
Okay, good.
We've told it before. We'll lay off. Anyway, that is it for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Send us emails with Croft for the Lara Croft Tomb Raider 4K giveaway in the subject line. Get it to us by the 30th. And Damon, Damon, to win one of the 2 4K packs for downsizing to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com by the 30th. See you next week.